Hey everybody, Vicky Fitch here, your direct sales expert. I'm coming to you live from sunny Southern California, but it's kind of sad Southern California too. Many of you guys know life is crazy right now. There's a lot of things happening on all fronts. We got, COVID to riots and things that are happening here in the United States. And we've got other things that are happening in other countries, and the world's kind of flying off its axis right now. Tensions are so high and stress is so crazy that I wanted to bring you kind of a little hope today, right? And we want to bring you a little ray of sunshine on a cloudy day and see if we can talk about how to find the bright side. So if you guys are new to the broadcast, put a one in the chat box and say, hey. And if you guys are my regular Perry peeps, my Facebook fans, we are on several platforms here. Please put your name in the chat box and say hello. And be sure to hit the share button because this is a message everybody needs. People need to find a way to connect and communicate right now. Hey, Friedman, welcome to the broadcast. Hey, Irv, Mark, Melanie. I don't know what that one said. Welcome to the broadcast, guys. Thanks for being here. So what can we do right now? Well, how do we find, right? People say all the time, right? What's your new normal? We need some encouragement because we need a little good news. It doesn't change the things that are happening, but the tensions are so high. Hey, Greg, welcome to the broadcast. Tensions are so high that people are getting lambasted and yelled at for trying to support, right? And people are starting, hey, Loki fan, welcome to the broadcast. They're starting to backpedal and people are attacking entire races or cultures, suggesting they have one viewpoint or another viewpoint, and it's creating chaos. And so again, everybody isn't going to like this post. Some people are going to, some people are going to do what they're going to do, suggesting that there's no possible way for us to find the bright side in anything. And so when there's not a bright side, I'm going to, like I said, I promise there's encouragement and good news, but I want to start out by saying, we've all gone through some tragedies, right? I know for me personally, one of the biggest tragedies for me was losing a baby. And, it's not like you can look at it and find a bright side while it's happening. You can't find that and hold on to look for what's good, right? It's not good that I lost my child. It's not good that that life wasn't there. But when we are mature and when we look at things in a different way, we can look for the bright side. So for me, the bright side was I looked and said, that child was probably going to have some terrible disease that was going to be in physical pain all the time. Hey, Rhonda, welcome to the broadcast. You're going to be in pain all the time, right? So that gave me the opportunity to look at the bright side and be grateful that the baby went to heaven before it had to live a life of torture or trial. So looking for the bright side, thank you so much. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you so much. And I was actually still pregnant, Rhonda. So I want to clarify that I had not actually delivered the child, but if you've ever had a miscarriage, because it is a miscarriage, but it's still there. So I'm not comparing my pain to anyone else's. I'm trying to show you that even in situations that look like you can't find a bright side, that we need to, because that's how we move forward. And that's how we encourage others and find hope, is that we can't fix. Right, Rhonda, thank you. Hey, Frank, welcome to the broadcast, sweetheart. I've been meaning to call you, Frank. We have to talk after this. We need to chat. That we need to find the bright side because there's chaos all around us. We can't change COVID-19. We can't change that it happened. We can't change that we've been quarantined for months at a time. We can't change those things that happen, and we can't change the anger some people are feeling over COVID and directing that, saying, hey, if we can't, if we were sequestered then, and why are we not sequestered now? And why does it feel like people are flip-flopping, right? So I want to challenge you to find a bright side. I want to challenge you to look at it from a different perspective and look at it in some way that you can deliver value to someone else or deliver value to yourself. Because I don't know about you guys, but I try and be a very kind and loving person. I have been attacked all over the place for not understanding or not this or not that. I don't claim to understand everything, right? And so it's okay. As a matter of fact, the part where we should be trying our best, whether or not we feel discouraged, is to try and understand, to try and be empathetic, and to try and find value that we can support and deliver, right? Because it doesn't do us any good to start feeling angry that other people are yelling at us or slamming us on social media posts. We don't know why we don't know what instigates their pain the most, right? What triggers it the most? Is it COVID? Is it what happened with the police brutality? Is it, there's a bunch of things, and I don't want to specifically say things, so I don't want people, start targeting here in the chat. I want the people that are feeling overwhelmed and discouraged and thinking, oh my gosh, yeah. Greg says COVID is so last week. Antifa chased it off. And it's kind of true in a way, right? It's like, wait, are we still on lockdown, or wait, are we still on quarantine, or are businesses open now because malls are open and they're being looted, and the ones that weren't open now aren't opening, and it's just crazy. It's causing chaos, and it makes us want to withdraw and not participate and not support, right? Because some people are suggesting that you couldn't possibly know, so don't possibly say anything. And other people are saying, well, you need to say something because you're not saying something. Your silence means that you're supporting this. And I don't know. Can you put a 2 in the chat box if you felt confused at any time? It doesn't matter if you're Black, white, Asian, from the US, from out of, from a different country. Put a 2 in the chat box if you've been a little bit confused. Maybe you've tried to post something supportive, and then someone ripped you to shreds, right? We need to be encouraged and recognize our attempts at being the best version of ourselves, our attempts at helping, or our attempts at understanding. We need to celebrate it ourselves, even if other people don't understand, because we are going to be misunderstood sometimes. When tensions are as high as they are right now, you're going to be misunderstood sometimes. Everybody isn't going to get you. And if it makes you want to withdraw and not participate in anything, or it makes you angry, let's work on that. Let's look at having a bright side. And I'm going to tell you, I have a suggestion, or tell you I'm going to do something that might encourage you and motivate you. In just a second, I'm going to look at your comments. Frank says, that's an excellent idea. I sometimes get caught up looking outside to see what chapter of Revelation we're doing today. Frank, I know, me too, my friend. Rhonda says too, right? Chaos is always going to be here. Right now, we're in mass chaos. There's so much that I'm not sure any of us could keep it all sorted out and compartmentalized without one issue, one feeling, or the filter that we use. If you've read any of my books, I talk about the filter we use. Is the filter we see through is the experiences of our life, right? If we've experienced some kind of prejudice, or we've experienced some kind of rejection or different things, it's like it mars and clouds and puts dirt over the lens of the way we look at things. And so we can only look at things with the lens and the filter that we have. That's all. It's all we have. We don't know what we don't know until we know it. But many of us are trying. Many of us are trying to understand other people. Many of us are trying to ask questions, and sometimes we're shocked and saying, "What?" I mean, there's a little there's little things going around where people are suggesting one thing or another. Like, for instance, there's a video going around, and this is just me. Hey, Kathy, welcome to the broadcast. Irv says sometimes negative stuff happens and it isn't easy to find the bright at that time. I hear you, Irv. That's exactly why I'm doing this broadcast, because it's not. I was in tears earlier today, and I was telling my husband, oh my gosh, like my heart hurts. It really hurts, especially when we when we're misunderstood. Put a 3 in the chat box if you've ever tried to help, or or you thought let's start with this one. Put a 3 in the chat box if you ever tried to help and you were misunderstood, or you were trying to have a conversation or ask a question and you got misunderstood, and then it hurt your feelings. Like somehow someone attacked, or tried to suggest that you were inappropriate, rude, disrespectful, disconnected, unattached, completely clueless, any of those things. Put a 3 in the chat box. Rhonda says, I've had feelings, but hesitate to post on anything. I try to keep politics and religion off my page. And while I feel this warrants something, it's hard to know what to say. Like you mentioned, people have conflict with saying the wrong thing and saying nothing. Yeah. And you know what, Rhonda, that's why I'm doing this broadcast, because I'm that person that's bold enough to say something, but always trying to have a conversation. And yet I have been completely lambasted a bunch of times, right? Thanks, Greg. I've been completely lambasted on things that people totally did not understand. Like you guys have seen this. And again, I promise this is all about encouragement. So just recognize I'm trying to connect if you're feeling this way too, that there is hope, that we don't have to wallow in that or be afraid, because everybody isn't going to get you. And we can't worry that everybody is going to get us. We can ask questions. And you know what? If somebody says you're a buffoon and you're an idiot for even asking that question, you're so out of touch, then you recognize that the people that are responding are not the people that you need to ask, and you can ask it somewhere else. And I mean this sincerely, because if it wasn't for the fact, now, there obviously there's a lot of movement and stuff, or a lot of protests going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. I have a lot of friends that are Black that I feel like I can ask them questions, right? Help me understand this, or how does that, how does this make a difference, or help me understand your perspective, because I want to know. Now, when you ask someone that you don't know, or you think you know well, sometimes you find out that you didn't know them so well at all. But we shouldn't stop being curious. If we stop being curious, or we stop seeking out information and truth, we will stop our connection process. We're not always going to get it right. But all you can do if you get it wrong, or if somebody, because let's put it this way, you could ask the same question of 10 different people and you might have 7 different reactions, right? It's unlikely that you're going to have 10, of the same reaction, or a complete split of just one or the other. People are made up of their own experience. Dr. Phil used to say we are a product of our own environment. And so we can't anticipate how many people are going to react. And in Evict the Bully in Your Head, book number 2 in the 12 Books, 12 Months series, I talk about hot spots, right? Where things are super sensitive. And then there's something called a landmine. And a landmine is something that you have zero idea that would cause a problem or would upset someone. And they're completely, beside themselves. And that's, like I said, it's something you couldn't have predicted. You didn't know. Like in the book, I use an example of somebody says, talks about your intelligence and saying you're smart. Oh, you're so smart. And that is offensive to someone, because when they were a kid, they were always said, smart girls stay single because boys don't like smart girls, right? It's something, by saying someone's smart, it's usually a compliment. And therefore it's a landmine when something blows up and you're like, oh my gosh, I just told her I thought she was smart. And you didn't recognize how people, receive information. So we shouldn't stop complimenting. We shouldn't stop seeking. We shouldn't stop asking questions, as long as, and this is the key part, guys, as long as you're seeking information and you're not using judgment. Okay? Judgment, when you're judging other people and judging their decisions, judging their beliefs, judging the way they feel, judging the way they interpret things, then you're not there to learn. You're not there to receive and to bridge the gap. You're there to pass judgment on whether or not you agree with what they say. Now, I know you got to pull up your bootstraps, because that can be hurtful and painful sometimes. Maybe it's something you learned, and that's just the way you it's like, that's just the way my parents always did. That's what they always, they asked questions to come up and figure out if they agreed with you, just so they could tell you were wrong. And that's what I think a lot of us are experiencing on social media, is that we ask a question, or we're supportive of something, or someone says something we feel is really outlandish. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example. And remember, we're all friends here. I don't know how well I know you, but we're all friends here. And if you know anything about me, I would never intentionally try and judge, hurt, make fun of. I wouldn't do that. Okay. So when you're listening to what I have to say, remember that your filter can be dirty, right? Our own filters can be dirty, and we need to clean them off. Sometimes they're marred and cracked from the stuff that's been thrown at us, the insults that have been hurled, or, the bullies in your head that have told you you're not good enough, or smart enough, or pretty enough, or rich enough, or whatever enough. So remember that for a second as we talk about something, as I want to give you. And again, remember, this is all about encouragement. And by the way, if you guys have not shared yet, hit the share button, because I think you probably know someone else that's struggling with the same thing, or they're angry and they don't know how to communicate. And so they're just seething, right? When you talk to them, they're seething, or when they do talk about something, they blow up and they just rip everybody else to shreds, because they're not recognizing everybody's going to have their own sensitivity to it, right? So let me look at this really quick. Greg says, I have a green beard. I'm always misunderstood. There you go, Greg. You know what? some people will. They'll judge that and say, "Oh my gosh, he's got issues. He has to have a green beard, so he's trying to call attention to himself. He must be insecure." Like there's, we can hear all the stuff that people say. Some people just like green beards. My son actually dyed his hair hot pink for Real Men Wear Pink. And when people didn't know that, they were judging him. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm part of the Real Men Wear Pink campaign." And he really went above and beyond. He actually looked really handsome, I thought, but he didn't know how he was going to look. He just did it because he wanted to raise money for breast cancer. So, people are going to judge. They're going to make their own decisions, but we have to be solid in who we are and recognize our own value as we seek to understand more than to be understood. That was something Stephen Covey said. Rhonda said, "Great way to look at it. Thanks, Rhonda. I'm confused now. The city of LA has one curfew. LA County has a different one, which applies to me." Irv, it's a good question. You're, he lives in both LA because one of them's 5 and one of them's 6, right, Irv? So, well, okay. Well, let's talk about curfews and then I'll go over to this other part. So curfews are a little bit tricky. What they're trying to do is identify what parts, and they're trying to protect you, because if you guys haven't seen, oh, that's awesome, Greg. If you haven't seen what's going on here in the United States, there are tons of riots going on. There's a lot of peaceful protests. As a matter of fact, when I went shopping today, there were somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people on all 4 corners right next to a place called the Shops. There were a lot of cops out there because there has been some hubbub that there were going to be some non-peaceful protesters coming to create some havoc. And so I don't know where they get the information for sure, or if it's just because it has been happening, but they were trying to protect that, right? So peaceful protesters are trying to do one thing. And so the police they're putting this curfew in place so it's more easy to identify who the people that are trying to create the havoc are, right? And so, Irv, I recommend that you go with the earlier time just to help yourself stay out of the heightened tension, right? I mean, if you can't and you have to work, then you have to do what you have to do. But I would not want to be a police officer right now. I really wouldn't. And I have a high respect for some. I was really devastated. And many of you know, if you watch my feed, when the whole thing came down, I was devastated. I was traumatized. So I am feeling that pain. But I would go with the earlier time just to protect yourself, because there's a lot of crazy going on and there's a lot of really heightened emotions. And that's why if we can step back and try and say, okay, I'm going to try and look at this with the bright side, right? Bright side of my curfew is I get a little extra time at home. I know that's a hard one when we've been under quarantine, but bright side is, I am going to use that time to watch Vicky's podcast or her broadcast and make us, something smile. Sometimes I always say the obvious to the outlandish. It can be outlandish. It doesn't matter. It changes the way you're thinking, and it creates endorphins in you and stops some of that, the stress hormones, the cortisol, and the things that start to, make us stressed out and frustrated. Okay. So I don't know if that really helped, Irv, but I would go with the earlier time and just to keep yourself safe, because, it's like I said, heightened emotions, lots of people, and a lot of people are there for the wrong reason. I saw a video today where this guy is videotaping these people literally stopping their cars, and I don't know where it was. It's looked kind of like maybe New York because it was so heavily trafficked, but I don't think so, because the architecture was a little bit different. But people stopped their cars, ran into a store to steal. They were just looting the place, coming out with 10 and 15 boxes. And this guy's he's like, "Dude, what do you got there?" Like he's with them, but he's not. I mean, he was like flabbergasted. This one woman, she just took it and she goes, "Yeah, it's for me and my son." Like she didn't have any problem with it. And then she went, parked her car, I think, and then went back in for more. It was crazy. So I felt frustrated, right? I was like, what in the world would make people feel that way, right? Because my filter is, I always learned, you don't do that. You don't steal. If it's not yours, you don't take it. If you didn't pay for it, it isn't yours. And taking free stuff sometimes is hard. Like, right? Are you sure it's free? Is this really free? Is there is there something else here? But watching people deliberately do that, it made me upset. It made me angry. So for me, I had to change and say, okay, bright side here. Let's see. And again, please hear me. I'm not saying this is correct. I'm not saying it's the correct behavior. I'm saying I had to calm down. If I take on everyone else's stress and the pain and anguish of the world, I'm a very empathetic person. And if I take that on, I will cry. I get this stress and I'm so stressed out and that doesn't serve me well. It doesn't serve you well either. And I wouldn't be able to deliver a message of hope or encouragement to you if I continued with that line of thinking, right? So don't think I am justifying their behavior. I am not. Don't think I'm suggesting this is what they should think, because I do not. I don't understand why they're doing it. But in order to allow myself to calm down, I look at what I call bright side, even though it's not a bright side. It's certainly not a bright side to the store, and it's certainly not a bright side to the insurance company, and it's certainly not, a bright side in any of that way. But for me to emotionally be able to decompress, I had to say, I bet she's really struggling. And she, maybe her son is struggling, and maybe you can call it, stories. Like I create stories. And she needed something to lift his hopes. Maybe her son's suicidal and she has no money and she thought that would change his life. I know they're outlandish, or the probability is outlandish, but it's the only way I can breathe. Does this make sense? Can you guys, I know it's crazy, but can you put a 4 in the chat box if you understand what I'm saying, at least? And just like, okay, I just have to think of it as another way. Just like if I get stuck in traffic or I get a car accident, I say, okay, if I wouldn't have gotten in this accident, which I have survived, I may have been killed if I had gone this other direction. That's how I do it, because then I can let it go. And that's what works for me. I don't know if it's going to work for you, but that's what works for me, because otherwise I hold on to it and I feel the pain and I feel the pressure and I feel the anxiety and I feel the stress. And then it makes me want to cry. 5VP us might help. I don't 5VP us might help. I don't know what that means. Hey, Mel, welcome to the broadcast. So nobody gets me. I get it. Okay. Maybe I'm waiting for those 4 still to come in. And even if you don't, it's okay. It's okay, because you can pick your way. But let's face it, it's really you just trying to understand what filter they're using, right? You're trying to understand, because we don't want to judge. When we judge other people, judge not lest ye be judged, right? I can look at the behavior and say, that's not right. But if I start trying to judge people's character, then I am then now internally that judge and jury, and I'm causing myself stress. So when we look for encouragement, like for instance, instead of doing, I think in the mornings, I'm maybe once or twice a week, I'm going to do a bright side show or a fresh perspective or a good morning show or something like that, that says, that just focuses on a positive song, a positive message. And I'm not going to talk about any of this stuff, right? Because I want to help people. I want it to be a catalyst for people to go in another direction. I want to be a catalyst for people to go, okay, I got it. I understand how to start looking at things a little bit differently. Or sometimes we have to tune out what's happening. And you got to recognize everybody, they're not going to get you. And they might call you names if you do comment or ask a question. Maybe you have to find someone who is safe that you can say, hey, could you help me understand this? We have to be careful about the way we say things too, right? Saying, this is effing ridiculous. Those people, it's like, that doesn't sound like you are trying to understand someone else. Do you guys get where I'm going with that? When you start with statements instead of questions, like, this is ridiculous, or I can't believe it. And I'm not saying I've never done that, because there are times that I have, like, I can't possibly think of a reason that was okay, right? But most of the time I'll say, okay, this really rubbed me the wrong way. What do you think? Help me see a different perspective. And so we have to work with that. We have to work with what we have and look for the bright side, look for the possibilities, seek more to understand than to be understood. Recognize that other people have a different filter that they're using, and just say, okay, I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to judge their choices. As a matter of fact, I said this thing the other day. There was a woman, and I don't know if you guys saw this. Are you going to compete with Frameable? Oh, no, I'm not going to try and compete with anybody. It's really just popping in with a positive message, Melanie, but I'll have to look and see when theirs is to make sure I don't. But there was a woman She was a black woman, and there was a car, apparently, because you don't see the first part, that was handing out bricks to these black boys, right? And what you see is this woman going over to the car with I think she had the brick and putting it back, and she goes, "What are you?" And she was using a lot of expletives, right? "What are you thinking? Do you know exactly what you're doing by handing those bricks to them? The only purpose is to get them in trouble. You could get them killed." And she just kind of boom, she was just lambasting these people for doing, for for trying to create what are you using them as an experiment? Handing out bricks to people in your car? That's a really bad message, right? And anyway, so what I wrote was besides the expletives I'm not a fan of because I'm a G-rated girl. I applaud her addressing it with the people and not, and addressing it with the boys to take the bricks away and say, like a mama bear, no, no, no. Just because people are trying to encourage you to participate in poor behavior, I'm going to at least show you a different side and discourage it. And she discouraged it in a big way. But that's the kind of impact we need to have. We need to do stuff like that. We need to have the courage to say, no, put that down, right? I need to walk, but I'll keep listening. My curfew's coming up. Hey, Irv, I totally understand, my friend. Man, I've missed you, Vicky. Haven't seen you. Oh, Greg, thank you so much. Frank says 7 habits. That's right. 7 habits of highly effective people. Thank you, Frank. But that's what we got to do. We have to encourage each other. We have to stand up in a way that doesn't have to be confrontational. When we see somebody lambasting a friend of ours, again, I get, and I'm not telling you have to do this. Sometimes maybe all you have the courage or strength to do is send him a private message and say, "Hey, I just want you to know I saw that. And I'm sorry because I'm sure that hurt your feelings. I just want to know I'm here and I support you." Or, I understand where they were coming from, but I totally know who you are. Whatever, some kind of supportive message behind the scenes. And maybe that's all you can do. Maybe that's the strength you have. That's okay. That's okay. Be you, and your courage and your strength will grow. But when you see somebody lambasting a friend of yours, what is your instinct? Look, you blah 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 blah. That's not the way she is. Like we get that whole volume going and that personality, and we get mad because we want to defend our friend. But I want to ask you something. Do you think that's the best way to support them? Just think about it for a minute. Do you think you're opening a door to conversation, or you're creating more of this? You're getting the person to dig in on their position and tell you why they're right, that your friend's a moron. Or is it better to say, "Oh, wow, Mark, Joe, whatever your name is, I see that you're really passionate about what you're talking about. And it seems like, maybe you might have interpreted Sally's answer as something, confrontational. I know her personally, and I don't think that's what she meant. But, we could ask, or, and we could chat and maybe try and bridge this gap instead of making it wider, right? Do you think that's possible? And like I said, you have to have courage to do it because you might get reamed. I got reamed today twice, maybe 3 times in the same thread. I still stick to my guns. My question was valid. It was supportive and saying, "Hey, I think," because they were this particular thing was mocking another race, culture, whatever. I won't say what one it was. It was just mocking them and comparing what this person was feeling. And I said, "Really? Is that what is that like, I don't think that's what you meant." Because I know this person. I said, "I don't think that's what you meant. I understand that this is a really passionate topic, but maybe we could talk about it, maybe on the air, I don't think I mentioned on there that was my intention. Maybe we could talk about it and try and bridge the gap instead of creating a bigger one." I mean, I would love to do that. And I got "Oh my gosh, you," and they started again. I think, and I need you guys to remember, when people read a lot of threads or a lot of information, it's almost like the residual RAM of what we've been reading gets stuck in our head, and we're not even recognizing that it has nothing to do with this person, what that person said, because we already have it there and we're using that filter. Are you guys with me? We're using that filter, and they're like, I was like, I didn't say anything like, what are you even, I don't even know what you're talking about. But I didn't say that, but I was saying, oh, well, I think maybe there's a misunderstanding. And, I tried to clarify. And then another person chimed in and said, you're so out of touch and da da da. And I said, I think you missed the reply, but da da da. And they just kept going. And eventually I said, you know what? I don't think we're getting anywhere from this, but I want you to know this. I support your efforts and what you're doing. And I'm sorry there's a misunderstanding. My inclination, right, is to defend myself and go, what are you talking about? I didn't say that. What do you mean? But I didn't. I tried and it didn't work. And then other people were chiming in and I stayed firm on who I am and then retreated from the conversation because when people are super angry, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Oh, it is calm people that are looking to see your perspective, that want to bridge a gap where you can make some headway. Does that make sense? Can you guys put a 5 in the chat box if that makes sense? When people aren't ready to make headway, it's not going to happen. And that's okay too. Like I said, there are times when I'm like, do not give me any more information. I can't take it. We don't want to judge them for that. We have to recognize where they are and respect it. Even if we don't agree, we can still respect other people. Frank says, many of us have struggled understanding that we have an unconscious bias. Okay, Frank, it's not an easy subject at times, but I'm enjoying your wonderful reminder to stay positive, mindful, and authentic without being hurtful. Thank you, Frank, because it is true. It's funny. I always think that I don't, right? I think I don't have a bias because I didn't grow up that way and I don't see things that way. But then when you read books that talk about unconscious bias, and then you're like, oh, maybe I do that. Like, I don't know that I do it. I don't recognize I do it. I don't feel that way if you literally spelled it out. But are we doing it? Do I get nervous, if somebody's in a hoodie going, on a street when somebody's not, or if somebody's in a business suit? It is. I do feel different. It doesn't matter what color they are. It's the hoodie that makes me feel nervous, even though a hoodie is could be just to keep someone warm. But those things happen, and that doesn't make me a bad person, right? It's reality that we have to start looking at, and we also have to start recognizing that it's actions and reactions. Like, when I was younger, I would talk a lot more. I mean, I talk a lot now. I get that, but remember, it's a live stream and nobody else is here talking, so I have to. But I talk a lot, and I'm Italian and I use my hands. But I didn't think as much when I was talking with other people. I learned to bite my tongue, right? So I learned to deal with some of the things that I was working on. But I recognized when people were insecure, they would sometimes either withdraw or come at you. And so the people that come at you, you have two choices. You either withdraw or you gird up, like bent back, right? And so the key is to figure out how to stay neutral no matter what this person is doing, no matter what their body language is doing, because we do read body language. If you never read the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, it's a great book. I love Malcolm Gladwell. But we do react to things. We react even though we don't know that we're reacting. We react. And we've got to be careful about that. And so I just wanted to bring that up and tell you guys that there's hope, that we can change. We can not be defensive and not withdraw and not attack. We can try and stay neutral. Other people might keep throwing stuff at you, but just keep staying neutral. And then you can just excuse yourself from the conversation. Sometimes we might want to, our inclination to tag someone else in the broadcast, tag someone else, come and support my position. That doesn't help. Angry people are not open to changing that dialogue at that time. And I think you guys probably recognize that. So anyway, I'm so glad you guys came. I hear some chimes going on. I don't know if you guys heard those. My team, if my team is not watching, they are telling me that I'm late. I'm 3 minutes late for our meeting. So guys, I appreciate you being here. I hope you found some value in the conversation. I hope you found some value in the broadcast. Remember, keep the bright side. Look for the good. Even if other people call you Pollyanna or call you names or tell you you're an idiot or moron or out of touch, it's okay. Just recognize that you want to understand other people It keeps you calmer. It keeps your perspective in check, and always seek to understand other people. Let's do the best we can, right? I hope you've been doing well. I have been. Ken, thank you so much. Greg, thank you so much for being here. Guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. And I want to remind you, like I always do, to dream it, believe it, and achieve it. Ciao. I'll see you guys soon tomorrow, 6 p.m. Oh, tomorrow's Do You Neo. Don't forget, 6 p.m. Pacific. See you later.